ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरोन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तां सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome all the devotees for this Bhakti Vaibhav class on third canto, chapter 5 to 8. So we are discussing, we are at the end of the chapter 6. The last class we concluded the discussion on the, we're discussing the description of the Vishwarupa, Virat Rupa form of the Supreme Lord. So, one second. So, so in the end of the last class, we were discussing that how the different members of Varnashram, they emanate from the different parts of the universal form of the Lord. For the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras, they emanate from the different parts of the body of the Lord. We concluded with the 33rd verse. Padbyam Bhagavato Jagye Sushrusha Dharma Siddhaye Tasyam Jata Pura Shudro Yadvritya Tushyate Harihi. Thereafter service was manifested from the legs of the personality of Godhead for the sake of perfecting the religious function. Situated on the legs are the Shudras who satisfy the Lord by service. So we discussed that how one of the natural characteristic of a Shudra is an attitude of service. They serve the other three Varnas. And this service attitude is not just meant for the Shudras. In fact, service attitude is required for the members of all the members of the Varnashram system for their perfection. And service is that activity by which the Supreme Lord is pleased. Prabhupada says that it is better to be a Shudra than to be a Brahmana and not develop the service attitude. So the principle of service was generated from the legs of the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada compares how the Shudras are better situated than the Jnanis. Because the Jnanis may want to become one with the Supreme Lord. And that is considered to be like the last snare of Maya. But a Shudra who has a simple desire to serve, who details a desire towards the Lord and the devotees, he is actually much better situated. So, like the last year, I think for several months, almost for a year or less than that, there was this India-China in the border. They were actually having a standoff. Like Indian soldiers and the Chinese soldiers, they were actually they were there in the border. It continued for a long time throughout the period of winter, and then finally they moved out. So during that period, I happened to read one article which caught my attention. So that article was analyzing, suppose if a war breaks out between India and China, what will be the game changers in that war? What will play a major role in that war? What will be the game changers in that war? And then the article went on to analyze the different weapons which the India and China have, especially they analyze the different fighter planes. What are the fighter planes which India has, and what fighter planes the China have? Because that was the time also there was this Rafale aircraft. There was a news that India was purchasing from France. So the article was analyzing in detail about the fighter planes which India have, how many fighter planes they have, and what are the capabilities of those fighter planes. And then when India gets the newer fighter planes, Rafale, what are the advantages of that? And then what the fighter planes of China, what fighter planes they have, and what are their capabilities. There are like second generation, third generation, fourth generation fighter planes. And then it was analyzing that about the capabilities of both the countries in terms of the Air Force, in terms of the fighter planes. And then the article went on to say, actually it said that the army runs on stomach. There's a saying that army runs on the stomach. That means one of the crucial part is that they have to get food regularly. And especially the place where the Indian and Chinese soldiers, they were having a stand-up. That is a place which cannot be inhabited by anybody. You can't reach out to this, practically snow everywhere. You have to provide everything over there, right from the tents to food, and everything has to be provided. So one of the crucial things in the fight between the India and China would be fighter planes is one thing, but one of the most crucial aspects is that the army has to be fed regularly. They have to receive their food and their basic needs regularly. That is one of the most crucial aspects in the war. And for the Indian army, so there are some transport aircraft, transport helicopters and aircraft. They take all these basic necessities to provide to the army soldiers. So these transport aircraft, especially in this particular border, in this war, they are going to play the most crucial role in this war, because they are going to serve the soldiers who are actually in the forefront protecting the border. So therefore the article concluded the game changers in this war between India and China, the game changers are not going to be the fighter planes which India possess or the China possess, but the game changers in this war are the transport helicopters, transport planes. Some numbers they have, each airplane they have a particular number. They are going to be the game changers in this war. So then I was reflecting on that. Actually, you see the transport helicopters, they are like they are playing the role of a servant to the servant. The soldiers are in the forefront fighting the war, but the transport helicopters are like the servant to the servant helicopters. They are like the position of the Shudras who try to serve the other three Varnas. Sometimes those who are Shudras or this one, they are overlooked. Sometimes the word itself is seen as some derogatory word. That is how the narrative has been created. But actually, they play a very crucial role. Just like in this war between India and China, the transport helicopters are going to play a very crucial role because they are going to actually maintain the soldiers. So, in that sense, in the Varnashram system, they play a role. Like even if we see in the hospitals, there are doctors who are treating in the forefront, but equally important or even more important are the different support staffs, the nurses and others. In fact, they go through a lot of stress and more physical work. Doctors will be on rounds certain times, but nurses will be all the time there. So nurses, they play a very crucial role. And similarly, in a family, those who are in the background and the different maids. Last year we had in the temple. Last year we had a small function in which we felicitated different staffs who actually served during that lockdown period. During the time when most of the devotees got COVID, and how these staffs actually, although the manpower was very less, but still they chose to serve. So in that sense, those, like as Prabhupada is writing about the position of the Shudras, so that is why in the Mahabharata there is a verse which says that a Shudra who is loyal in his position of service, the Lord Vishnu resides in the chastity of a Shudra. Lord Vishnu resides in the service attitude of a Shudra. If suppose if a Shudra is loyal to his master, that is his dharma, and like Lord Vishnu resides there. So in that sense, like every member of Varnashram system, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, they all play a crucial role. Varnashram system is a system of interdependence. The system of interdependence. So whereas the Western culture or the we can say the system which is based on matter, the materialistic culture, that stresses more on independence or over-dependence. So the material culture, it makes a person either over-dependent on somebody or something, or it makes a person to be completely independent. Like for example, that Prayen Alpaisha Sabya Kala Vasmi Yuge Jana Manda Sumanda Matayo Manda Bhagya Upadrata. Prabhupada writes in that purport that in Kali Yuga, over-dependence on another's mercy saps the very vitality of human energy. Like for the rice which you are eating in the plate, so you are dependent on Saudi Arabia providing petrol. That is how the Kali Yuga has become like that. So over-dependence, it could be a simple dependence on petrol or many aspects of life. So over-dependence actually leads to slavery. When you become over-dependent on somebody, then you have to listen to their dictations. Whatever that person says, you may have to make policies according to that. So over-dependence leads to slavery. And independence makes the person arrogant. So if you see, the materialistic culture also promotes independence. Independence, that means it actually, so you remain independent, people get cut off from their family, or previously there were joint families, and then as time progressed, joint family became a nuclear family, and then now as time is progressing, from the nucleus, proton has gone into another direction, electron has gone into another direction, and neutron has gone into another direction. The nucleus has also got split. So the nuclear family further has gone into intercity family, sometimes intercontinental family. Husband is in one place, wife is in another place, and children are studying in another place. So the modern culture actually promotes this independence. It tries to separate the people, and that is also very artificial. Whereas the Varnashram culture, Varnashram system is a system of interdependence, where each member recognizes the contribution of the other member of the Varnashram system and respects them accordingly. You can see that profoundly in the conversation between Swayambhu Manu and Kardama Muni, especially that conversation is a perfect conversation where there is how the Brahmana was respecting the Kshatriya for his contribution, and how the Kshatriya was respecting the Brahmana for his contribution. So that shows how they recognize their independence, and therefore they respected each other. So the respect can come because of two reasons. When we respect other people, one reason is we can respect understanding that every living entity is a part and parcel of Krishna. Understanding the spiritual position that every person is a part and parcel of the Lord. And when we see beyond the material body, when we see the spirit soul, one can respect every living entity. This is a respect arising from the spiritual understanding. But another aspect is the respect arising from recognizing the mutual interdependence. That, this person, a Brahmana sees that, because Kshatriyas are performing their dharma of protection from the miscreants, therefore I am able to perform my Brahminical duties. Because there are Grihasthas and Vaishyas, and they are providing, they are giving donation to the temple, because they are maintaining the sadhus. Therefore, I am able to devote so much of time even to study Shastra and to devote exclusively for spiritual activities. So when we recognize that mutual interdependence, how my practicing bhakti, me getting so much of time is actually connected with other members of the Varnashram performing their duty of giving charity. When we recognize that, we naturally respect the other members of Varnashram. So therefore, respect can come from recognizing everyone as a part and parcel of Krishna, and also recognizing the mutual interdependence. And we can see that in the conversation between Swayambhu Manu and Kardama Muni, and also in the interaction between Prithu Maharaj and the Sanat Kumara. Whereas when one of the members of the Varnashram system, when they forget their spiritual position, when they become arrogant, then how it leads to different reasons. For that also there are many examples in the Bhagavatam, but that will go into the different direction. So So therefore, this is a important point about Varnashram. And one more thing which was just I had in mind, I forgot to. So therefore, another point is about the classless society. So the communists actually they talk about classless society. They criticize caste system, and they say, oh, everyone should be one class. There should not be any classes only. Everyone is equal. But it is when we talk about equality, equality can be talked about on the platform of the spirit soul. On the platform of the soul, everyone is equal. In every person's body, there is a spirit soul is there. But on a material platform, there is no equality. And there is a relative superiority and inferiority. Just like on a material platform, a teacher is naturally respected by others because it is a natural superiority, it is not some artificial superiority. A person who is an administrative head is naturally respected by others. So on a material platform, there is naturally hierarchy. But the communists, they talk about this equality on a material platform, on the bodily platform. But the equality can be talked about only on the spiritual platform. So essentially, this theme comes many places in the Bhagavatam, that the reason why the caste system became an exploitative system where the higher classes exploited the lower class, that is because the reason is that people forgot the purpose of the caste system, purpose of the Varnashram. So, although there is a natural hierarchy within the members of the Varnashram, a Brahmana is a natural teacher of the other Varnas, and a sannyasi is the guru for everyone, including the Brahmana. That is because of the principle of detachment. Although detachment is important for everyone, but sannyasi, because of the he has detached himself from the family, therefore he is naturally the guru of every member of the Varnashram system. So, but above all these people in the Varnashram system, above even the sannyasi, is the Supreme Lord. So when the members of the Varnashram system, when they fail to recognize that the position of the Supreme Lord, who is above everyone in the Varnashram system, when the Brahmana fails to recognize the position of the Supreme Lord, then when the Brahmana forgets the purpose of the Varnashram system, then one tends to exploit the lower class of people. Therefore, the reason for exploitation, the reason for degradation of the caste system is basically forgetting the aim of the Varnashram, and it is not that the system itself is bad. Like when a person is having say, kidney stone, so you go to a doctor and the doctor says that, oh, okay, let us remove the kidney. The stone will be gone, the doctor says. So definitely stone will be gone by removing the kidney. That is true. But the point is that will the person survive actually? Because you may solve the problem of removing the stone, but you will actually create a much greater problem of removing the kidney itself. So therefore, when there is a problem in the caste system, if you suggest that let us remove the system only, let us make it a classless society, it is like a doctor suggesting that remove the kidney only. No, you have to don't give you have to see the actual problem and then just give solution for that aspect of the problem. Otherwise, you will end up creating a much greater problem. So therefore, Prabhupada explains that a disordered society cannot satisfy either the members of the society or the Lord. Even if one is not a perfect Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, but takes to the service of the Lord, not caring for the perfection of his social position, he becomes a perfect human being simply by developing the attitude of service to the Supreme Lord. Next verse. Yete varna swadharmena yajanti swagurum harim shraddayatma vishuddhyartam yajjata bihi. So, Yete Varna, all these different social divisions are born with their occupational duties and living conditions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, for conditional life and self-realization, one has to worship the Supreme direction of the spiritual master. Rishi is saying that all these Varnas appeared from the universal form, faithfully worshipping. They faithfully worship the Lord as their Guru by performing their duties for the purpose of God. So, Krishna says that Sve Sve Karman Yabirata Samsiddhim Labate Naraha Swakarma Nirata Siddhim Yata Vindati Tachrunu. So, there is a conversation where Prabhupada explains that how one can become perfect by performing one's occupational duties as a worship of the Supreme Lord. Sese Karman Yabirata. So in that conversation, Prabhupada explains that, it is not necessary that everybody has to be given a Brahman initiation. Everybody has to be given, it's not necessary that everybody should be given Brahman initiation. That according to the disposition, one can be given. Yeah, the Brahminical culture, that means following the basic 4 regulative principles, getting up in the morning, chanting in the morning, doing our morning program. That is actually common for everyone. That is that the Brahminical culture, the spiritual culture. And these things will create mode of goodness that will be helpful for everyone. But Prabhupada was explaining that it is not that one has to become, everyone has to be given Brahman Diksha. And then he quoted this verse at least twice. Sve Sve Karman Yabirada Samsiddhim Labate Nara. One can worship by worshiping the Supreme Lord, even by performing one's occupational duty as a Shudra or a Vaishya or a housewife, whichever one may be, one can actually perfect one's life. So therefore, so when we talk about the last week there was a question about, say, potential of a person. Suppose somebody asked a question, and devotee asked this question about, say, suppose leadership training is given to different people. So when we talk about potential, so every person has a potential to develop love for Krishna. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunai Shavanadi Shuddhi Chite Kariyevada. Every person has the inherent potential to develop love for Krishna. When he receives the Bhakti Lata Bij and when he starts watering that seed, he will develop love for Krishna. But every person does not have the potential to become a, say, Brahmana or a Sannyasi or a Kshatriya, this one. On a material platform, a Brahmana or a Sannyasi. On a spiritual platform, everybody's potential is same to develop love for Supreme Lord. But on a material platform, different people have potential for different things. So that has to be recognized. That has to be recognized by that person, that has to be recognized by the mentors or the guides. And then accordingly, one should actually encourage that person according to his potential to undergo the suitable training to actually bring out that potential and engage it in the service of the Lord. Otherwise, if you see on a material platform, anybody can be made a Brahmana or this thing like that. We don't find that actually. For example, in the Ramayana, when the soldiers were wanting to, the time came for crossing the ocean, and each monkey soldier was saying that, okay, I can do this much, cross 20 yojanas, I can do 30 yojanas, I can do 40 yojanas. So then it's not that Jambavan told, okay, I am telling you, I am empowering you, oh, you can cross these yojanas. He didn't tell Angada or any other soldier actually. Like he saw that, okay, those monkey soldiers were also harnessed, and Jambavan also could see that, okay, these monkey soldiers, they don't have the potential to cross this ocean. But then he recognized the potential of Hanumanji and then reminded him, and then he was the person who made Hanumanji as the hero of Ramayana. At the same time, it is not that the other monkey soldiers were useless, and they could also contribute. They could also make their contribution in the service of Lord Ram. So, just like in a, say for example, in a particular time, in Aarti, in the altar, certain lights are put on. The halogen lights and this thing, the temple, those lights are, the focus lights are on. And they may be, they provide lot of light. But the same lights will be of no use during the Shrine Darshan time or during the Mangalarti time. So, but during the Shringara Arti, the other lights, they will not be of any use. But that doesn't mean that they can't be used at all. But they play the main role in other times of the day, during the Mangalarti, Shrine Darshan. So similarly, everybody has a particular role, and so in that sense, by using their potential to serve the Supreme Lord, they can actually perfect their lives. So I'll go to the next verse. Yetat kshattar bhagavato daiva karmatma rupinah udayam. Vidura, who can hope to describe fully this form which arose from Yogamaya and whose nature is time and karma, is Vidura by the word Shatta. So who can actually estimate this gigantic form manifested by the internal potential of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So who could even, Shraddhyat means, Shraddhyat means, who could even desire to describe completely this universe? Desiring to describe it is impossible, then what to speak of actually describing it? Even desiring to describe completely is actually impossible. So he was, if we read in these purports, especially in this last verses of this chapter, one theme which comes repeatedly in these purports is the mental speculation attitude of the scientists and the froggish philosophers that will come repeatedly in these purports. So, one may only indulge in miscalculation like the frog philosopher. The froggish philosopher wanted to estimate the length of the breadth of the Pacific Ocean by his experience of a well 3 cubic feet large. And therefore he began to puff himself up to become as big as the Pacific Ocean. But at last he burst and died by this process. So now there is a very beautiful verse. Having described that nobody can even desire to describe completely this universal form, and then what to speak of actually describing it, then one may ask, then why did you spend so much of time describing the universal form? One may get the question, why did you waste your time trying to describe the universal form? So then my Rishi speaks this profound verse. Tatapi kirtayam yanga yathamati yatashrutam kirtim hare swam satkartum Giramanya Vidasatim. In spite of my ability, whatever I have been able to hear from the spiritual master and whatever I could assimilate, I am now describing in glorification of the Lord by pure speech. For otherwise, my power of speaking would remain unchaste. So here he says that I have described to you the glories of the Lord as I have heard from the Guru, Yatamati Yatashrutam, according to my intelligence, in order to purify myself of speaking other subjects. So we can say there are two aspects of false ego. When a person thinks that I can do this, I am the doer, I can do this, that is one aspect of false ego. And when a person thinks that I cannot do this, that can also be another aspect of false ego. If a person thinks that, oh, I can describe the universal form completely, then that is also an aspect of false ego. He is like a philosopher who does not understand his capacity and who does not understand the gravity of the subject matter which he is trying to describe. And if a person thinks that, oh, I cannot describe at all, so I won't make an attempt only. Let me not make an attempt to hear or study or something. That is also another aspect of false ego, that is like an inferiority complex. But rather Maitreya Rishi is showing the right attitude. Yeah, I know it is impossible to describe completely, but still, I have still described to you according to what I have heard from the Guru, according to my realization and intelligence, in order to purify my faculty of speaking. Otherwise, because my tongue is engaged in speaking many other topics, by that the tongue has become unchaste. But to purify that tongue, I am actually trying to glorify the Lord. So, this theme, what you see in this particular verse, you can find in various places in the Bhagavatam. Right, in the first chapter, first canto also, Sutta Goswami mentioned that, one second, Sutta Goswami mentioned that Aham hi prishtor yamano bhavabdir achaksha atma avagama yavan Nabha patant atma samam patatrinas tata samam vishnu gatim vipaschitaha. I shall try to describe the glories of the Lord as far as my knowledge goes, just like the birds fly according to their capacity in the sky. The sky is unlimited, but the birds fly as far as their capacity. Similarly, I will try to describe according to my capacity. Prachetas, they offered their prayer. Manu Swayambur Bhagavan Bhavascha Yenye Tapo Jnana Vishuddha Sattva Adrishtapara Apiyan Mahimno Suvantyato Atma Samam Grinima. Pracheta said that Manu, Brahma, Shiva and others who became purified by austerity in knowledge, though they are not able to see your glories completely, but they still offered prayers to you. In the same way, we have also offered prayers according to our best of abilities. Prahlad Maharaj, he had the same mood. Tasmadaham vigata viklava ishwarasya sarvatmana mahigrinami yata manisham nicho jaya guna visarga manu pravishta puyeta yenahi puman anuvarnitena. Prahlad Maharaj began his prayer by saying that I am actually, if Brahma and other devatas, they are not able to satisfy you, how can I hope to satisfy you when I am born in a low family? The same Prahlad Maharaj, few verses later, he says, I want to give up the conception that I am unfit to glorify you. In fact, however unqualified a person may be, however sinful a person may be, anybody can get purified by trying to glorify you, by glorifying you according to his capacity. So therefore, I will glorify you according to my capacity. Yatha manisham. So the same word comes repeatedly. So this theme comes, the devotee understands how the Lord's glories are unlimited, but at the same time he makes an attempt. So Maitreya's statement is that in order to avoid unchaste conscious activities, he was trying to describe the unlimited glories of the Lord, although he did not have the ability to describe them perfectly. So, so it does not matter whether the Lord's glories are fully explained or not. But one must attempt to engage one's body, mind and words in the service of the Lord. And that is the principle of Tridandi Sannyas. That engaging the body, mind and words in the service of the Lord. So therefore, one cannot remain idle. Consciousness is always active. But if the consciousness is focused on some material subject matter, then it becomes actually unchaste. So therefore, in order to purify that, one is supposed to glorify the Lord. The next verse, Ekantalabam vachasonu pumsam tushlo ukamauler gunavadamahu krutesya vidvad virupakrutayam kata sudayam upasamprayogam. So this Maitreya is saying that Ekantalabam vachasonu pumsam, the highest perfectional gain of humanity is to engage in discussions of the activities and glories of the pious actor. Such activities are so nicely arranged in writing by the greatly learned sages that the actual purpose of the year is served by being near them. So, you see that he is saying that trying to glorify the Lord or trying to hear the glories of the Lord is the highest perfection of the humanity. Ekanta labam vachasonu pumsam. So this can be something a little inconceivable for the impersonalist. Impersonalist, Prabhupada explained that they are very much afraid of hearing the activities of the Lord because they think that the happiness derived from the transcendental situation of Brahman is the ultimate goal of life. So, it's like, because they feel that anything to do with the activity or a quality or a person will ultimately result in misery. Because they feel, because they have experienced miseries with the happiness, with anything concerned with the person. So they feel that in a spiritual platform also, if we are actually dealing with a personal God, his qualities or activities, it will ultimately lead to misery. So therefore, sometimes they will be afraid of hearing the activities of the Lord. But like sometimes we find in repeatedly some of these purports, not only in this chapter and also in other places. Prabhupada talks about the impersonalist, and the last snare of Maya is to actually think oneself to be one with the Supreme Lord. So if we see philosophical point of view, from a philosophical point of view, the height of selfishness is to actually to become one with the Supreme Lord. To think that Jiva is the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 6.1 purport, Prabhupada explains that the desire to become one with the Supreme Lord is greater than any material desire. So in one sense, To say that the Jiva can become God, or to bring the Lord's body is also material, to bring the Lord to the position of the living entity. So in one sense, that is the last snare of Maya, or the height of selfishness, we can say, on a philosophical level. But when we see on a practical level or on a cultural level, the impersonalists or we can say the Mayavadis, the impersonalists, they will not consider God's body to be material. But the Mayavadis who think the Lord's body is material, the living entity is one with the Lord. So on a practical level, they will be highly cultured. On a practical level, they may score much higher than even the devotees in certain, like in their educational systems, like for example, in the selflessness or in the culture and the following the say Vedic principles. On a practical level, they will be like and in the aspects of say following the Vedic culture and etc. They will be much more advanced than even the devotees also. So we have to respect them for that actually. So just because when we actually differ with the arguing based on the philosophy, that does not mean that we don't respect them for their culture. And when we study Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dealings, both with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and with Prakashananda Saraswati, we can see one thing, that how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu respected Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Prakashananda Saraswati, how he respected them for their position, respected them for their culture, but at the same time, he actually discussed them, and he refuted their Mayavad philosophy. So therefore, that has to be very, we have to keep in mind. Like there was one devotee who was studying in some Gurukul. When he was studying some Patashala, some aspects of Nyaya, Mimamsa. So the head of the Patashala, yeah, they are all followers of say Advaitavada. But so at a certain point he was taking leave. He was moving out of the Patashala after studying for some months. So their Patashalas are such that their Gurukul is such that you don't have to pay a single penny for studying. Rather, they actually provide you accommodation and they provide you food cooked by the Brahmanas, and then they even have systems that when you pass out of the Gurukul, that the student who passes out, he is given money. Like the student is given money because he has spent so much of time for studying, and they give money to that person. And like this devotee was studying, and after some months he had to go to some other place. He was leaving, so he came to give some Guru Dakshina. He wanted to give some Guru Dakshina to him, and because he was not eating the food also there, because he wanted to avoid eating there. But they said that no, we will provide you separate cook, where they will provide. I will give separate facility who will actually cook for you, like that. Like they had such culture that the traditional Gurukul actually, the whole concept of like charging for the education that came from the Western, this one, where the knowledge is sold. But we can see, although philosophically, the wanting to become one with the Lord, the last snare of Maya, and the aspect of transcendence. But on a practical level of Vedic culture, they are following such a profound culture in terms of education, the traditional system of Gurukul. And when this devotee came to give some Guru Dakshina to him, the teacher said that, I cannot accept this Guru Dakshina because you have not completed the education. You have not completed the education, so how can I accept this money? Please don't give this money, because if you had completed this whole syllabus, then if you go, then I can accept something. So, on a practical level of culture, the Vedic culture and selflessness, I felt that like they may be scoring, they may be several notches ahead of actually the devotees, or even more than our systems actually, because so in that way, when we talk about, when these points come again and again about the last snare of Maya to be the one with the Supreme Lord, on a philosophical level, yeah, one may have to discuss based on the Shastra, but at the same time, we have to recognize and we have to give the proper respect for their actually practicing the Vedic culture, and all of them, they are all within the school of Sanatana Dharma, because whether the Advaita or Sampradaya, different Vaishnava Sampradayas, at least they accepted the Vedic authority. So, in that way, we don't compromise philosophy in the name of culture, and nor do we compromise culture in the name of philosophy. Therefore, these points come often in this purports. So, and also a rishi like Maitreya is certainly not interested in discussing anything pertaining to mundane qualities. Yet he says that the highest perfectional stage of transcendental realization is to discuss the Lord's activities. So therefore, Jiva Goswami says that the topics regarding the transcendental activities of the Lord are far beyond the transcendental realization of Kaivalya happiness. Atmano vasito vatsa mahima kavinadina samvatsara sahasrante diya yoga vipakkaya. And here he says, even Lord Brahma, he did not comprehend the powers of the Lord for 1,000 years by mature yoga practice. Suppose an ordinary person says that, oh, Lord's glories are unlimited. If an ordinary person says that, that statement may not make a great impact. But if the same statement is made by Lord Brahma, Maitreya Rishi is quoting Lord Brahma, then the statement has a greater weightage. Once Parashara Bhatta went in front of Lord Ranganath, he was trying to take darshan of Lord Ranganath. Lord Ranganath told that, can you please describe me, can you glorify me, can you describe my beauty? So Parashara Bhatta said that, I will glorify, please give me 1,000 mouths which have the capacity to glorify you like Lord Ananta. I want 1,000 mouths which have the capacity like Lord Ananta. The Lord was thinking why he actually is asking for this, and then he actually gave 1,000 mouths to Parashara Bhatta. Then Parashara Bhatta, the Lord was waiting that he will start glorifying. And then Parashara Bhatta was standing, looking at the Lord, and then after some time he said that it is not possible to glorify you. Then the Lord asked that, you asked for 1,000 mouths to glorify me, and I gave you that also. And ultimately you are saying that it is not possible to glorify me. Why are you saying like that? If it is not possible to glorify me, why do you like that? If glorify me, you could have told me before asking 1,000 mouths. After getting 1,000 mouths, or were you not, you had 1,000 mouths? Then Parashara Bhatta said that, actually I am completely aware that even if it's not possible to glorify you. I knew that before. Then the Lord asked that if you knew that before, that it is not possible to glorify me even with Then Parashar Bhatta said, because after having obtained 1,000 mouths, having the capacity like Lord Ananta, then if I make that statement that it is not possible to glorify you, even with this 1,000 mouths, then others will take my statement seriously. Then others will take my statement seriously that how your glories are unlimited. So otherwise, people will think, oh, this person is anyway, he is some Lallu Panju person. If he is making this statement, why should I take it seriously? One may think like that. But in order that people should take my statement seriously, that your glories are unlimited, therefore I asked for those mouths and then I made that statement. So similarly here, Maitreya Rishi himself is a Agada Bodham. He is a person of fathomless knowledge. But still Maitreya Rishi is feeling that, oh, I must quote the example of Lord Brahma. Even Lord Brahma could only describe the glories of the Lord, could not describe the glories of the Lord even after 1,000 years of mature yoga practice. So Vishwanath Chakravartipad says that after 1,000 years, the Lord's glories were understood as impossible to understand, since they were inconceivable and infinite. And in this way, Brahma attained the realization of the Lord's glories, and this was the knowledge he attained. So therefore it is said that the Lord is known to the person who does not think the Lord is limited. And one who thinks the Lord is limited, he actually does not know the Lord. So again, in this purport, Prabhupada talks about mental speculation. So, mental speculation, it is like one purport Prabhupada explains that the attempt of the empiric philosophers to understand the absolute truth by speculation is always futile, because their process of understanding, their objective, and the instruments by which they try to understand the absolute truth are all material. So, in fact, when you read Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime, Kala Krishnadas, he actually got distracted because of sense gratification. He got distracted with the gypsy women. But Balabhadra Bhattacharya, he became a victim of mental speculation. So one of the cause of mental speculation is when you hear from relative sources and when you don't hear from absolute sources, and that is the cause of mental speculation. So Balabhadra Bhattacharya heard from some relative sources who said, oh, Krishna has appeared, he is dancing in the hoods of Kaliya. So once during the COVID period also, there is all this vaccine and so many theories come. There is a open market, so much of room for mental speculation. People come up with different theories. So essentially, because we hear from people, relative sources, people with imperfect senses, this thing. So some amount of truth mixed with a different, some amount of speculation. So when you hear from relative sources, then that one becomes a victim of speculation. And also when a person depends on one's own limited senses, when a person thinks, one class in the 5th Canto, and the description of the planetary systems were going on, Radhanath Swami Maharaj mentioned in a class that when you understand that the Lord is inconceivable, then all these descriptions about the planetary systems will be conceivable to a person. But when you think that the Lord is conceivable or the Lord is limited, then all these descriptions of the planetary systems will appear to be inconceivable. How can it be possible? How can there be mango fruit of the size of 10 kilometers, 10 kilometer diameter? How can there be a ocean of sugarcane juice?
how can there be this much a tall tree? How can there be a Sumeru mountain which is a golden Sumeru mountain? So therefore, and these purports, these points repeatedly come. Atamapi mohini yatsvayam chatma parmatma navedati mutapare. The wonderful potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is bewildering even to the jugglers. That potential power is unknown even to the self-sufficient Lord, so it is certainly unknown to others. So Maitreya Rishi concludes, the Lord is unlimited, even I am only describing according to my capacity, he mentioned. And then he said, even for Lord Brahma, after 1,000 years of mature practice, even he understood the Lord is unlimited. And then finally he says that even for the Supreme Lord, even the Supreme Lord does not know his own glories, then what to speak of others? So, even the Supreme Lord does not know the extent of his glories. And this is the conclusion of the prayers of the personified Vedas, the 87th chapter of the 10th Canto, the 41st verse. The last prayer of the personified Vedas, they also concluded with this, that even the Lord does not know the extent of his glories. But one of the qualities of the Supreme Lord is he is all-knowing, he is omniscient, he is all-knowing. But then if he does not know the extent of his glories, then how can we say that he is all-knowing? That means he is not all-knowing. And if he is not all-knowing, then he cannot be the Supreme Lord. So, one may think like that. So therefore, the Acharyas say that actually, if a person does not know a subject matter which exists, then we can say that he is not all-knowing. But if a person does not know something which does not even exist, then by that you cannot say that he is not all-knowing. For example, the Akasha Pushpa, or the horn of a rabbit. So, if somebody does not know these objects, but actually these things don't exist in the world only. There is no flower growing in the Akasha. There are no horns for the rabbit. Similarly, the limit of the extent of the Lord's glories, the limit does not exist only. The Lord does not know that, and by that you cannot say that he is not all-knowing. Because the limit of the Lord's glories, it is like the horn of a rabbit. It is like the Akasha Pushpa. They don't exist only. So therefore, in this way, Maitreya Rishi also concludes. So, Ato Bhagavatau Maya Mayinam Api Mohini. That means the Lord's Maya bewilders all the lower creatures who are experts at enjoying Maya. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti says in his purport, one may ask the question, but you are saying the Lord's glories are unlimited, but one can see many persons who have seen the Lord and who can reveal it to others. What about them? We see many people giving discourses who are actually speaking or revealing to others. Vishwanath Chakravarti says that the Lord's Maya bewilders those who have offered themselves completely to Maya, becoming her students and supposedly being able to give knowledge about her. And Maya certainly throws them constantly into the material realm. So that means that Maya bewilders even those who supposedly give knowledge about the Lord, and Maya. So, yeah, it's, some people may speak actually, but the Lord's Maya can bewilder even those who may speak about the Lord. So last verse. So Prabhupada gives a simple, beautiful example. A small banyan fruit contains thousands of small seeds, and each seed holds the potency of another tree. So the trees and seeds engage the devotees in meditation about the activities of the Lord, while the mundane wranglers waste time in dry speculation and mental concoction, which are fruitless in both this life and the next life. In spite of their pride in speculation, they can never appreciate the simple potential activities of the banyan tree. And such speculators are poor souls destined to remain in matter perpetually. Last verse. Yato prapyanya vartanta vyachascha manasasah aham chanyayi me devas tasmai bhagavate namaha. So finally Maitreya Rishi offers obeisances to the Lord. I offer respects to that Supreme Lord whom words along with the mind, the devatas such as Brihaspati, Rudra and others could not understand and gave up. So therefore I simply offer obeisances to the Supreme Lord. It's a matter of sanity. So we can see this verse is again the Upanishadic conclusion. As Upanishadic, Taittiriya Upanishad verse says that Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha. Words along with the mind turn back from the Supreme Lord who cannot be fully understood. So the power of speech of the universal form and all the individual jiva along with their minds retreated from the Lord are the words emanating from Brahma's mouth along with his mind retreated. Rudra, the presiding deity of Ahankara, the Devata such as Brihaspati retreated from him. But then, Vishnu Chakatipad says that so the words and other senses cannot at all realize the Lord. But the Lord can be known to some extent by Atma. Can be known to some extent by using Atma. That means what? Lord can be known through the path of devotional service. So by depending on mental speculation or by depending on one's own ability of mind and senses, one cannot understand the Lord. But by using Atma, that means by a service attitude, one can understand the Lord to the extent the Lord reveals. So that is why there are different quotes in the Vedic literatures. For example, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says that the Lord should be understood by the mind. Manasai Vanu Drashtavyam. The immeasurable Supreme Lord should be understood by the mind. That means that you cannot understand the Lord with the material mind, but the Lord should be understood with the spiritual mind engaged in the service of the Lord. And then there are other words. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pashyanti Surayah. The devotees, the devatas always see the form of Vishnu. But then previous verse mentioned that the words along with the mind and senses, they turned back from the Lord. But then this verse says that the devatas always look at the form of the Supreme Lord. That means the devatas with the spiritual senses, they were able to look at the form of Vishnu. So these are the statements on like Arthapatti, contradictory statements, how we can reconcile. So therefore Prabhupada quotes in the purport, Bhaktyamam Abhijanati Yavan Yasyasmi Tatvatah. Only by devotional service one can know the ultimate truth is the personality of God. So I'll just take a break here. If anybody has any questions, and then we'll go to the next chapter. Some messages in the... Oh, your voice was breaking. The verse spoken by the Prachetas that comes in 4th Canto, 30th chapter. If we see some of the, I think second last prayer or the last prayer. the prayers of the Prachetas in the 4th Canto, 30th chapter, one of the last prayers, Manus Swayambur Bhagavan Bhavascha. That's how the verse starts. Shyam Leela Prabhu, in Puranjan pastime, legs and hands are described as blind. As if intelligence is pure, then hands and legs will operate properly. Is this true for Shudras also, that they need to hear from the Brahmanas? Pure than hands and legs. Yeah, in a sense, yeah, that's a Shudra or a Brahmana or other Kshatriya or Vaishya. Yeah, they need to learn from the Brahmanas. So we have to perform the actions with the proper vision, with the proper knowledge. The knowledge is given by the teachers. The Brahmanas are playing the role of the teachers. And the others, they, according to that knowledge, they are supposed to perform their duties. That's true. The Shudras also learn, they need to hear from the Brahmanas. Generally, they are taught the Puranas, Ithihasas, Bhagavatam, the Vedic mantras, like chanting of the Vedic mantras, that is taught to somebody who has a Brahminical qualification. But Puranas and Ithihasas, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Mahabharata, these are meant for everyone, whether it's a Shudra or everyone. So Brahmanas, they can teach these subject matters to the Shudras. And the same message of the Vedas is available to them. Like other Varna. The Shudras also receive proper education like other Varnas. According to their capacity, if we see the principle of education, Mahaprabhu, to the mass of people, he just distributed Harinam and the Mahaprasad. He just distributed, of course he didn't have Mahaprasad, this one, like, he just distributed the holy name, performed the Kirtan. And then he discussed in the Vedantic discussion. Vedanta discussion, he got involved with Sarvam Bhattacharya, Prakashanand Saraswati. And then on topics of Rasa Tattva, he discussed with this intimate devotees. So we can say mass of people, essentially based on the qualification. So Prabhupada writes in one purport in 3rd Canto, 25th chapter, that even the common people, the Shudras or the common people, they should also be educated about the stories of the Lord. They may not have the capacity to understand deep philosophy, but normally every person in the society is educated about the different stories of the Lord, different satsanga, Ramayana stories or Mahabharata stories, and then or by enacting dramas or dance, this one. In that way, even an ordinary person would be educated about the stories of the Lord. Yeah, one may not know detailed Sanskrit verses, etc. But people had knowledge of the stories, and by that they would get a simple understanding about the purpose of life, the position of themselves, the position of the Supreme Lord. And if we see the very speaker of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Suta Goswami is not born in a Brahmana family, he is born in a mixed caste. So, to learn the Puranas and Itihasas, that can be learned by everyone. because they contain stories. So even in that, actually, deeper philosophical aspect of the Bhagavatam is such that one can just give a storyline and then make people, according to their level, we can just give the storyline, make the people understand the essence. And also Bhagavatam can also be taught if the people have the greater capacity to go deeper, then one can go deeper into Bhagavatam and become go more into detail into philosophy and to satisfy them also. So in that sense, even the Shudras were taught, but according to their capacity, according to their level. So that is why there is a adhikar required for every knowledge actually. There's Anubandha Chatushtaya. There are 4 things are mentioned in the beginning of a book. One of the things is that adhikari, who is the adhikari for this knowledge. So for the stories of the Puranas, Itihasas, everybody can actually learn. As mentioned about over-dependency on others, so can we consider Dhritarashtra and Karna's example for same from Mahabharata, as over-dependency on others is not good? One should have the over-dependency on Lord's mercy or not? Now, over-dependency on the Lord's mercy, there is no being dependent on the Supreme Lord. In that, there is no question of over-dependency as ultimate perfection actually. We dependent on the Supreme Lord. But in the sense, dependent on the Supreme Lord, it does not mean that we don't put any effort or we become lazy. One puts one's full effort, but in one's heart, one is completely dependent on the Lord. That is the feeling one should cultivate. But the first part of your question, can we consider Dhritarashtra and Karna's example for same from Mahabharata? Dhritarashtra's main psychology, it's not over-dependent. Dhritarashtra's many aspects, one of his psychology is that Dhritarashtra was always seeking sympathy. He was a very wicked person, but he posed himself to be a weak person. And he was seeking sympathy from people. And Dhritarashtra represents, of course, family attachment to the kingdom and the sons. And if we see in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra. Duryodhana could not even express his problems when he was going through depression. He was going through fear. He could not even express his fear. Because of his arrogance, he could not actually express that. But Dhritarashtra always expressed his problems to Vyasadeva, Sanjaya, Vidura. He had guides in the form of Vyasadeva, who is the author of the Veda. He always expressed his problem, but he never sought a solution for the problem. He never wanted to implement the solution given by them. So there are people, one kind of people, they will not want to express their problem because they feel that what will others think if they come to know about my weakness. And there are others who will actually express their problem, but it is not that they are seeking a solution. They have already decided a solution, but they express their problem just to seek sympathy from others. That was Dhritarashtra's character. Vidura, Vyasadeva would give advice, but he never wanted to actually take their advice. So Arjuna was the person who went through all the 3 steps. He actually expressed his heart to Krishna, Karpanya Dosho Pakata Swabhava, this first chapter, second chapter, and then he expressed his problem and then he was seeking a solution. Nishchitam Bruhitan me, tell me for sure that what is good for me. He was seeking a solution. And then he actually implemented that solution. So Dhritarashtra was seeking a solution, but he didn't want to implement the solution. He was only wanting sympathy from others. And Dhritarashtra also represents the character one who one who followed the philosophy of actually Daivavad. That means everything depends on the will of the Supreme Lord. And he didn't want to put an effort. So everything is happening according to the will of the Lord. Duryodhana is acting according to the will of the Lord. So I will not put any effort to correct the Duryodhana. That is the philosophy of Daivavad. So Karna is example is Karna basically the person who was out of his friendship towards Duryodhana. He was loyal to Duryodhana. Over dependence, I don't see exactly. Varnashram system in its pure form is lost in Kali Yuga. What social system the Shastras recommend in this age? What are the methods to identify Varna and propensities of an individual present times of mixed caste, mixed marriages? Yeah, Varnashram system is definitely a very descriptive case in Kali Yuga. It's not that Shastras don't recommend any other system. Shastras give only Varnashram system. In the Kali Yuga, the way Varnashram system one can practice in the Vedic times, that is not possible. Kali Yuga, the Vedic Varnashram cannot be established as it is. But the Daivi Varnashram, keeping Krishna in the center, that is what Prabhupada suggested. So in the Daivi Varnashram system, we have to see according to some things we may not be able to practice, but certain things, aspects of Varnashram system, to some extent, if we examine in our own life, one can actually try to practice different aspects of Varnashram. And it may be